And you see this, we're getting a warning message here, right? I'll talk about this warning message. Please do remember this. Remember the fact that we're getting a warning message once we come into the security page. Okay, so it says that there is a sync process that hasn't been successfully or that hasn't been submitted in the past 24 hours. So it is asking us, it is just letting us know that a sync job has not been run for the past 24 hours. If you want, you can go ahead and run it now. A sort of a warning message letting us know that sync has not been run for the previous a few hours or the 24 hours. And in here, we will focus on the other we'll talk about the options available in here, all the options available in here. Let's first start off with users. If I have to create a user, I need to come into users tab. I can click on add user account. And when I add a user account, I could create a user and associate it with a person in the sense employee. And this would be required in case you have to access a few screens, such as a purchase order screen. Remember, to access some of the screens, you might need to have a person associated with your user profile. And one of the classic use case would be that if you have to access a purchase order screen or a PO receipt screen, you need to be registered. You need to have a person associated with your user, and that person should be registered as a buyer. But not every employee, not every user needs to have an employee associated with it, unless you have to do some FPDA loads, or unless you have to do some technical activity which would require access, or which would require your user to have a person associated with it. This would not be absolutely required. And usually the users, we would create a user manually here. And this is what you normally do for the implementation team. So if there are 4 or 5 technical consultants, or maybe 10 members working in an implementation project, comprising of technical and functional resources, for those resources, yeah, you might be creating, or the users might be created as a standalone implementation users without the person associated with it. But in real time, how does the users get created? Users would get automatically created as and when you load employees using HCM data loader. So you would, as and when you load employees using HCM into HCM cloud, as and when you load employees, it would, the users would get automatically created for them. And you would not create the users one by one for the employees. You would only create users explicitly from this screen, only for some exceptional scenarios wherein you're working in an implementation team and you need access to the instance to do some activities. And what do you need to enter to have your user created? You can tag your user to a person type if you want. You could select it as worker, and you could search for a specific employee, and you could tag that particular employee to the user, or other way around, the user to an employee. Okay, and you could give in the details there, but this is not a mandatory step. And you could go in here and type in the name, first name, last name. Let's enter it as Fusion user 1. I'm not particularly sure if fusion.user1 already exists in this instance or not. But what do you notice in there? So the moment you type in a first name and last name and tab out, you notice that the username got defaulted as first name dot last name. Where is that coming from? That is coming from a user category that is used here. So if you go into user categories, let me just cancel this. You go into user categories, and the user category, there would be one default user category, and that user category would control few things. And what are those few things that user category controls? It would have a username generation rule, which would determine how a username needs to be generated. Should it be a first name dot last name, or should it be email, or a person number, or F last name? That means the first letter of your first name and the last name. And apart from these options, there are few more options that a user category determines, like how complex the password should be, when it should expire, and when it should or when the user should be prompted to reset the password and all that stuff. And as and when you create a new user, a notification would also be sent out to the user saying that a new account has been created for you. So that notification text also you can control by going into the notifications tab here. So there are a few things that a user category controls. And one of them is the username generation tool. So you click on add user, you enter the details in there, Fusion user 1. And the moment you tab out, a username gets automatically generated as first name dot last name. And you can enter the password there. I would just say welcome 123 W in caps. Enter the username and password in there. And this is how you create a user. And if you just create a user, if you don't assign any roles to them, remember what I mentioned earlier, when you log into the application as a specific user, what you get to see within the application and what actions you will be able to perform will be determined by the roles that are assigned to your user profile. So if you don't assign anything, that user won't be able to see anything or do anything in the application. And now comes the interesting bit. So click on add role. So what types of roles are available in ERP Cloud? So let's talk about a job role first. So you have abstract role first. So any user you have, so I'm not talking about implementation users, but if you talk about a normal employee being hired, so you hire a specific person as an employee, and you want to give him access to the basic functionality that every employee needs to have within the application. And in such cases, wherein you want to give access of a certain basic functionality to the users, you would be using abstract roles to achieve such functionality, such as the employee role. So you're hiring, say, 10 or 15 employees for different departments, 2 for GL, 3 for AR, and 4 for HCM. But all of them, end of the day, are employees, and they should have access to certain basic screens within the application. Maybe they should be able to, see their pay slips, they should be able to see the timesheets, and they might also be able to see the organization hierarchy, etc. Right? So to give access of the basic functionality to the users whom you're hiring as employees, you could achieve that by assigning a role called employee role. So this employee role is an example of an abstract role, wherein you give certain basic functionality access to all the employees. And you search for employee, you could see that there are 3 roles showing up with employee. So this is a copy role. It would help you. This is basically given as a backup for a seeded role definition. In case something is screwed up in this role definition, clients can look at this role definition or can make use of this role. Earlier, in the previous releases, we didn't had duplicate copies like this. And what happened was, if you go into roles tab and if you search for employee role, you can edit it the way you want. You could make changes to the seeded roles without, and system won't stop you from doing that. So very often clients have reached a point wherein they started editing seeded roles, and they end up in a situation where they want to go back to the original seeded role. And there was no way to go back because they've already made quite a few changes in there. And clients used to raise a service request with Oracle, and they used to provide, they had to revert that role back to original. So to avoid that, not from the past few releases, it has been there for quite some time. And since that point, what Oracle did is, for every role, they are also giving a copy role, a sort of a duplicate available for you in case you mess up something in a seeded role. And there's another role that starts with aura underscore, and you have underscore abstract at the end. So this underscore abstract at the end, this would indicate what type of role it is. Is it an abstract role, job role, or a duty role? So we'll talk about job and duty roles in a moment. So it is an abstract role. So we know that this is an abstract role which would give access to the basic functionality that an employee needs to have. So you pick that one up and you select that. And as a thumb rule, so one of the roles that you see here, this is you. And the next question is, we now know why you are seeing duplicate roles here, and why are we seeing this aura underscore role? Because you have same employee role appearing twice here, right? So the justification that Oracle provides us, they say that one of these roles has come from the upgrade. Okay, so they say that from the previous releases, or yeah, this particular role has come into the Fusion application from the upgrade. So this would remain as is. And whenever you pick up a role, try to pick up a role which starts with aura underscore always. Don't pick up a copy role, pick up a role which starts with aura underscore. And you click on this particular option called add role membership. And when you do that, the role would get automatically added here. So now we have had this particular user as an employee. Okay, and we have given him access that a basic user or an employee needs to have. Let's save and close. Now let's log into the application from a different browser as a fusion.1 user. So you search for fusion.user1. You could see the user saved. Now you copy the application, go into a different browser, and you would be able to search for it. And after you search for it, yeah, you could log in as that new user that you have created, fusion.user1, and you could mention, yeah, type in the username and password. Save it if you want. And what do I see when I log in? I see access to the bare minimum functionality that an employee needs to have. So I should be able to see my personal information directory, pay slips, and all other stuff. And I could also, I also have access to procurement. Probably if I have to raise a request to get some office supplies, I could do that. And I could also do the receiving part as well. And if you go into tools, that gives me access to the reports and analytics work area. That does not mean you get to see everything in there in the BA server. You will only be able to see the reports that you were given access to. Okay, and if you are probably used as an approver, you would probably be able to act on those notifications as well. And if you want to reset your password, you have an option to do that. So this particular user, or to this particular user, we have given him, since we have hired him as an employee, we have assigned him employee role, which would give him access to the screens that a user needs to have access to as an employee. Now, let's say that this particular user has been hired as a general accountant. Okay, he's hired as a general accountant, and he's supposed to manage a GL module. How do you give access to him? So if you when you create a user, this user would have received a notification. He would have logged in, and yeah, he would be happy to log in. But when he comes into this particular screen, he wouldn't be able to see anything related to GL. He won't be able to, in other words, he won't be able to do his job. So we have hired this person as a general accountant, but he's not able to see the screens for him to be able to do his job. How do you give him that access? You give him that access by assigning him a job role. So you edit the user, you add a role, and you can search for a specific role in there. So you could say a general accountant. So now comes, so when you hire a specific person, you hire him to perform a specific job, isn't it? And those job roles, and how do you give access of that specific job to that particular person? You give access by assigning him a job role. So if you have hired this person as a general accountant, you would give him access that a user needs as a general accountant by assigning him a job role. So the job roles would sound like this. The job roles would be like general accountant, accounts receivable manager, or a HR specialist, right? So when you hire a people, you would hire him into a specific job. You would hire him to perform a specific job. And for that user to be able to perform that specific job, you need to assign him a job role. Okay. So you go ahead and assign a specific job role. So if you hire someone as a general accountant, you go ahead and add general accountant job role. So you pick up the general accountant job role, pick up a role that starts with or underscore, and you have underscore job at the end, indicating that it's a job role. And you have GL, which refers to the module, and general accountant is a role name. Add role membership. And you can save and close. Now let's try to sign out and sign in as that user again from here. Sign out. And how many tabs do we see now? Do we see only 4 tabs? Let's try to sign out and sign in back again. But how many tabs do we see now? We see payroll, we see general accounting, and we see intercompany accounting. So in addition to the previous options, previous 4 tabs, I could see that I've got access to a few more screens now, like maybe the enterprise. And if you go into others, you also got access to FRC as well, Financial Reporting Center. Remember, this is where you could run the financial reports from or FRS reports from. So this user is able to see the general accounting related work areas or the navigation options. So I could go into general accounting, I could see general accounting, intercompany accounting, and the work areas. So I go into general accounting, and let's say I want to start the work and I want to create a journal. So I click on that. And the first thing it asked me to do was it asked me to pick up a data access set. What is a data access set? You could think of it as a ledger. From a technical consultant standpoint, that's okay. Whenever you create a ledger, a data access set would get created in the backend with the same name. And you need to first pick up a data access set so that the screen could allow you and once you do that, the data belonging to that data access set would be displayed on the journals, and you would also be able to perform the transactions. But if I click on this, if I click on the drop down, I'm not able to see any data in there. I'm not able to see any ledgers in there, which means yes, I was given access to the general accounting work areas. But how did we do it? How did we give this particular user access to general accounting work areas? By assigning him a job role. So assigning a job role to the user, would only give that particular user access to the functionality or access to the screens. But for that user to be able to do the transactions within that particular work area, you also have to grant him a data access. Okay, so granting access to data is completely different from granting access to the screens. So how do you grant access to the screens or the functionality? You could do it by assigning a job role. So if I click on OK, there is some bug within this particular screen. In this particular screen, it won't let you navigate out of this. So the best thing to do was put your application link in a different browser and you could close this. So I'm able to see the screens now, but but I don't have a way to create journals because I don't have access to any ledger at this point in time. Okay, so when you assign job roles, you only are assigning or granting data or granting access to the screens to the users. They won't be able to create transactions until you grant them data access. We'll park the data access for a moment. And let's say that, or let's do it this way. Let me go back. Okay, we would come to the data access in a moment, but for now, let's say that we have made him a general accountant by assigning him a general accountant job role. but that user is still not able to do any transactions, and he won't be able to do it unless we grant data access to him. We'll talk about how to grant data access to the users probably tomorrow. We'll park it for tomorrow. And let's say that this particular user has also been hired, or let's say this particular user has been hired as a finance consultant, not as a GL consultant. So this user is supposed to take care of AR module as well, apart from GL. How do you make this user an accounts receivable specialist? You could do it by going ahead and assigning him a couple of more job roles. So you edit the role here, or edit the user profile, add roles, and you could search for a roles called accounts receivable. You have accounts receivable manager role. You could pick it up, and you could select the accounts receivable manager job role and assign him. And you also have a role called accounts receivable specialist. You could pick up that role as well and assign it to the users. So since we have had this specific user to look after GL and AR modules, we are assigning him a job roles related to those modules. So we've assigned him a general accountant job role and a couple of AR related job roles. And you save and close now. Now that you have added AR related roles now, if you sign out and sign in back again, you should see additional navigation options to go down to the receivable work areas. Click on confirm. Login back as the same user. And I'm now able to see the AR related work areas, the receivables and the collections. But the problem with the data access would still remain same. If I go into billing, I don't see any data in here. And if I go into the tasks ribbon, I could see the transactions in there. I could see the tasks in there. But if I try to create an invoice, I would not be able to do it because a business unit is a mandatory column, and that a list of values would be blank for me. Okay, I don't see any list of values in there, any business units in the LOB, because I was not given access to any specific BU. Okay, so this is how you grant access of the functionality to the users or to the screens. And this alone would not be sufficient. You have to grant explicit data access to the users depending on their profile. And how do you grant data access? What different options are available to do it? Let's focus on it tomorrow. Any questions, guys? Any questions in what we covered today?
Yeah, Prasad. So in real time, how it is going to work? So I have to work as a from user perspective or from a developer point of view. I mean, like I will assign roles and privileges to the end user, or I have to work as a GL consultant or AR invest consultant.
No, just to help you guys understand the security, I was referring to these roles, or I was referring to the user being hired as GL or AR. Your job would be to set up the security, meaning assign the roles.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to make it easy for you guys to understand the concept, I was referring to the user being hired as GL and AR. You wouldn't be the
Okay.
end user doing this.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Understood.
Okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we create a custom role?
Yes, you can do that. You have an option to create a custom role here. You go into roles and you have an option to create a custom role from here. We'll see how to do it in the next session, probably on Monday, or maybe if time permits, we'll do it tomorrow itself. If you go into the roles tab, you could see the seeded roles given by Oracle. And in most of the cases, you would be required to customize the seeded role rather than creating a new role from scratch. But I would also show you how to create a new custom role from scratch you would have to do it when you have to give access of the ESS job you create to others. So when you create a BIP report, you would register it as an ESS job, And when you want to give access of your BIP report to others, or a ESS job to others, you would, in such scenario, you would create a custom role from scratch. In all other scenarios, yes, you would create custom roles, but you would be making up, you would be customizing a seeded role given by Oracle. You would pick up a general accountant role, and you might probably take off a few privileges from that, which a client doesn't want to give to a general accountant, and then you would assign that custom job role to the users rather than a seeded general accountant role. Yes, you can create custom roles, you can customize seeded roles, all those options are available.
And we can get to know about roles only by the name of the roles, is it? Is there any more information related to roles available anywhere?
If you go to documentation, the documentation link, you would have the details about the specific roles. Yeah, but usually we search for roles by its name. But you have enough documentation available in case you are interested. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Okay, I'll take it as no. We'll meet again tomorrow. We'll pick it up from here.
Hello, Prasad.
Yes, Niruddin. Yes.
Yeah, actually, like, how do we identify which is the abstract role, which is a job role, which is a duty role, and what is their respective functionality? Because in name here, as I have seen in seeded role, they have given the abstract role underscore abstract role.
Correct. Underscore abstract and underscore a job in there. So I will explain the role
Specific
hierarchy.
definition. Like, I'm unclear on those points, that to who, what exactly the use of job role and abstract role. I got the thing that by adding the role we will be able to see the functionality under that role. But what exactly the job role is doing, what is the role of that job role in after adding into the user or any
Okay.
abstract role?
I will answer your question tomorrow. And what
Okay.
you will notice is that there is a hierarchy in place. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
open up the PPT, we haven't reached that stage. So I was just showing how it works in the
Okay.
UI so
Okay.
far.
No, no
So
issue
this
then.
is
If we
this
are
is
not, I thought I may have missed this one, so I was asking. But I'm just want to highlight that I am not clear on those things, that for what is the use of those role, job role, abstract role, and duty role. So
correct.
okay, no issue. If you are saying that we will be going to continue in next session,
Yeah,
then
this is what I will be explaining tomorrow. So a job role. So what
that
I've
will be
shown you
fine.
today
Not an
is
issue.
okay. Yeah, I'll explain this tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for your time. We'll meet again tomorrow.
Thank you.